For many of you out there, you've been holding on to hope, holding on to the idea that perhaps in the near term, Star Wars would be saved. Maybe the Ahsoka series would do it. Maybe we would get something positive out of the Rey movie somehow, some way. Maybe Kathleen Kennedy was going away. Well, I'm here to tell you today that it's time to give up hope on those things. If you stick with Star Wars after this video, well, you're better than me, and you're better than most others, because right now, based on what I'm about to tell you, it is seriously time to abandon ship. All right, folks, welcome to another one. Happy Friday to each and every one of you. If this were the 90s, we'd be getting ready for TGIF tonight, but it's not. Still a lot of fun, though, out there, and I hope that you all are making plans for having lots of fun with people that you love and care about and having a great time. Now, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about that notification bell. We're going to stick it to Star Wars today, folks, and we have to. We just have to. There's no way around this. I don't know how many more videos we can make telling the truth about what's going on at Disney and its subsidiary studios before something will happen. You can't make up the kind of stuff we're going to report on. There is a glimmer of good news in this, and there is a whole lot of just can't believe it. You can't believe it. Here we go. We'll start off with this article from Entertainment Weekly by Dalton Ross. Dave Filoni on if Ahsoka is essentially a live-action Season 5 of Star Wars Rebels. The new Star Wars show picks up with the same mission teased at the end of the animated series. Now, most people have missed the important part that's in here because, well, it's not mentioned in the title. It's not mentioned in the subtitle. There's nothing here that would indicate that there's big news afoot. And I'm happy that this came out because we actually had this video prepared and ready to go about a week and a half ago, had the thumbnail made and everything, and we were working to corroborate some stuff. Took us a little bit longer. I'll tell you what it was. We were getting ready to release some information that Kathleen Kennedy was in a flurry of activity ahead of the writer's strike, really pushing to get her ideas into a lot of this Star Wars stuff, being more hands-on than anybody had seen recently. And we were working to get all that corroborated. The writer's strike happened, stuff was put on pause, and then we had these articles come out. Now, we're going to skip most of this article because most of it is not pertinent to what we need. It's just talking about Dave Filoni. He's going to be doing the Ahsoka series. It's talking about trying to translate the animated stuff into live action. You get the idea. But what we're looking for is something that's down here, buried into it. So let's take a look. We'll start right here. It says, however, the man who created these characters in animated form and now gets to shepherd them in live action prefers to take a more expansive view. Dave Filoni says, for me, when I'm telling those stories, I don't limit things like, oh, well, I did it in animation, so I would do it distinctly different in live action. There's just the story that it is, and I was telling it in one medium. He continued, Rebels is a different style than Clone Wars, even visually. That changed the way I could execute certain things in Rebels. The story kind of evolved since I worked on Rebels. Working with Favreau and setting things down in The Mandalorian created an opportunity to see how does Ahsoka work as a character in live action. And finally, he says something about Jon Favreau. Doesn't really say anything super positive, but at least he mentions him. He hasn't as of late, and you should take away from that some things. Considering Filoni created the character himself, transitioning snips to live action was both meaningful and nerve-wracking for the director/producer. With the head, tails, and the makeup, what does that look like, Filoni wondered. Can a performer bring that to life in a way that is meaningful? It took seeing Ahsoka in human form right in front of him to assuage his concerns. I was very fortunate, he recalls. The whole thing kind of came together for me. With Rosario, when we talked with her and when she put on the costume and became Ahsoka, I was like, you know, this is going to work. It really kind of was as simple as that. Here is what is buried. Here's what all of you need to know. And I have not heard many people commentating on this. And it seems to be confirming what we've been hearing. Filoni also credits some sage advice from the president of Lucasfilm for calming his nerves about the transition. It goes back to a quote that Kathleen Kennedy gave me when I was really going over the casting of Ahsoka. I said to Kathleen Kennedy, "How do you know when it's the right person?" And she just looked at me and said, "Dave, you just know." Boy, that's deep. That's deep stuff. Dave continues, I'm in a very privileged position to have a mentor like her advising me and just giving the knowledge that you need to make the choices creatively that you end up doing. And she was right. I just knew when it was Rosario, and that kind of brought Ahsoka together for me, and off we ran. Now, folks, what we're finding out is that Kathleen Kennedy is an active mentor to Dave Filoni. You can put the Lucasfilm Civil War rumors to rest. It's over. It's dead. Yes, at one point there was division within the studio. Yes, it did come from Jon Favreau having a different idea for where to go with this. But that is gone now. Favreau is not even going to be seen the end of the Mandoverse that he wanted to create. He's not the writer. He's not the director. He's not doing it. And here is Dave Filoni crediting Kathleen Kennedy. And I love that he credits her in a way that does not make her look any better. What kind of person goes to someone who has been in the industry this long and says, hey, what are some guidelines? What are some advice for knowing when you've really got this right? I mean, this is a multi-million dollar decision. And the response is, you just know. That does not strike me as someone who is excellent at their position. And the facts on the ground have borne that out over the past decade. Kathleen Kennedy is terrible at her job. That's not to say that women are terrible at that job. That's to say just one of them is. Kathleen Kennedy, she's terrible at the job. I'd take anybody else at this point other than Kathleen Kennedy. But here's Dave Filoni, and yes, he's a company guy. He's trying to make inroads. He's trying to keep his position, but he goes out of his way to praise Rian Johnson. He goes out of his way to praise Kathleen Kennedy. Goes out of his way to say Kathleen Kennedy is his mentor, his active mentor, even on this show.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
Because you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?
Very seldomly does Dave Filoni praise Jon Favreau. And Jon Favreau is the person who made all of this possible. Without The Mandalorian, we would still be in the shadow of the sequel trilogy. Now, we've got some more information about the Mandalorian movie coming up. I don't know if I would call it the Mandalorian movie, but that's what the direct is sort of calling it. The Mandalorian's crossover movie. Villain might have just been confirmed. And yes, this from 2 days ago by Klein Felt. Dave Filoni has basically said who the big baddie is. This is the glimmer of good that's out there. Thrawn. Thrawn is the bad guy. That's who we're going for. That's what Ahsoka's about. That's what the Mandoverse movie is about, right? What we would have once called the Filoni universe. It's no longer a universe because it no longer will continue on like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the MCU. Certainly not like the NCU. That's the Nintendo Cinematic Universe, which is being born before our eyes. No, this is an era which will come to an end swiftly. Make of that what you will. According to the Mandalorian movie director Dave Filoni, Star Wars Rebels' big bad Grand Admiral Thrawn will seemingly serve as the Mandoverse crossover film's primary villain. When asked in the summer issue of Empire magazine if he saw Thrawn as the big bad of this new Republic era, Filoni responded, "Definitely, in my eyes." When Timothy Zahn wrote Heir to the Empire, Thrawn became this very iconic villain because he was different than anything we'd seen before. He wasn't another helmet-wearing, lightsaber-wielding bad guy, you know? There's a lot of pull to make characters that are like Vader because it's so iconic. Now, wouldn't this have been wise if Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and Rian Johnson had all had this thought in their head? And let's throw Kiri Hart, the head of then the Lucasfilm Story Group as well. Would it not have been much better than what we received with Kylo Ren had we not gotten a cheap, emo Darth Vader knockoff, but rather we had received the existing big baddie that we all knew was out there, but which Disney, in all of their infinite wisdom, essentially jettisoned by canceling out the extended universe and making it Legends only. Well, it would have been nice to have had the sequel trilogy be about Thrawn. It would have been nice to have seen Luke Skywalker be a hero, but I guess we'll take what we can get now. He added that Thrawn is a critical player in this time period and they are fortunate to have that character. But the boldness he says that Tim had was to make somebody that wasn't like that didn't have those abilities, but could fight it a different way. In the words Star Wars, the war part of it, him being a Grand Admiral, a leader, a military strategist, a Moriarty archetype, someone that will outthink you, outstrategize you, that really resonated. He's a critical player in this time period. We're fortunate to have that character and fortunate to have Lars playing him. Now, all of that is well and good, but remember everybody, now we know Kathleen Kennedy is involved in all of this. This is not separate from the Kathleen Kennedy efforts. This is not separate from the same Disney Star Wars that we've been seeing. Whatever we may have thought about Jon Favreau and his efforts to go back and fix many of those issues, even with him coming out and being outspoken saying, hey, I think you've got problems. I think I could come and fix them. No, Dave Filoni is very well entrenched with Kathleen Kennedy. He's very well entrenched with Rian Johnson, with everything they've been doing, and we are driving headfirst back into The Last Jedi. And if any of you out there think that we're going to get a victorious, heroic Luke Skywalker in this, think again. We may get a cobwebbed cameo of the three behind the Falcon once more, but in terms of getting that hero version of Luke coming to save the day, ain't no way. We're going to get the Filoni characters, and they're going to go after Thrawn, and we're going to get the same kind of Star Wars we've been having, but it gets worse, because on this channel, we save the best for last. Here we go. Bounding into comics, John Trent, friend of the channel, been on here several times. We love John. Leslye Headland confirms the upcoming Star Wars series, The Acolyte, will look into what's going on for all of us right now. Let's remember, let's put this into context. We have Dave Filoni being mentored, shepherded, seeking advice about the Ahsoka show and beyond from Kathleen Kennedy. We have Leslye Headland, hired under special circumstances by Kathleen Kennedy. For those of you who are new to the channel, we did an expose on this in the past, that Kathleen Kennedy actually went out and hired Leslye Headland at a time when all hiring, all show connections, creation of new shows was on pause. Kennedy hired Headland anyway. Kennedy went against, allegedly, Disney leadership to do so. She really wants Leslye Headland, who, by the way, is Harvey Weinstein's previous personal assistant. She's a person who would have known about all sorts of things of a scandalous and awful nature. So Leslye Headland, someone who knew all kinds of sordid things, we have to assume, although make your own judgment about it, very coveted by Kathleen Kennedy, wanted to have her at the top seat over at Lucasfilm, heading up The Acolyte. Yes, Kathleen Kennedy is directing both sides of this coin, the Filoni efforts and the Headland efforts. Let's take a look at what is going over there with The Acolyte. What's going on? Leslye Headland confirms the upcoming Star Wars series, The Acolyte, will look into what's going on for all of us right now. I got a feeling that doesn't mean all of us. The Acolyte creator Leslye Headland recently confirmed that the upcoming Star Wars series on Disney Plus will be a commentary on current American society, culture, and politics. Well, isn't she just a beacon of virtue to be able to do so? If I were going to pick someone to give us apropos commentary on modern America and all of its flaws and all of the issues, I cannot think of anyone better than someone who served Harvey Weinstein and did not turn him in for a thing that we know of. I cannot think of anyone better. In an interview with Empire Magazine that was shared to the Star Wars Leaks subreddit, Headland discussed the series, saying, when you're doing something completely original like we are, you want to question the status quo of the era that you live in. She continued, what I think is so interesting right now is that everybody thinks they're right. This is like a 10-year-old discovering philosophy. The Jedi really think they're right, and George tells us that they're wrong in Phantom. I'm not sure exactly that's what went down, but okay. They missed a huge aspect of the dark side rising. They just felt like fertile ground, or that just felt like fertile ground to look into what's going on for all of us right now. Again, I don't think that means all of us. I think that Leslye Headland, in her discovery that people believe things and believe that they're right about those things, I think that she thinks she's right, and she's going to tell us how she's right, and her side is right, and everybody else is evil. We'll do that. We'll play that game again. Not only did Headland confirm the show will be a commentary on current American society, oh boy, culture and politics, we need more of that in Star Wars, but she seemed to imply the focus of the show being on female villains are self-inserts. Well, Yes, I could see that. You do come across in a villainous manner, considering your prior connections. She says, when I was a young Q girl, I was just hanging out with Ursula the Sea Witch. We've got to connect it with more of that wonderful Little Mermaid marketing. Gotta love Disney. They really know how to pick them, folks. They really know how to pick them. As a Q girl growing up, and by the way, I'm not reading this verbatim simply because I don't want to cause any issues with the algorithms. If you don't identify with the heroes and the villains show up and they're all coded in that way, you're like, yes, that's me. Oh, I love hiring writers who think they're Ursula. I love writers who were once personal assistants to truly evil, abhorrent men who believe they're Ursula, and now they're writing Star Wars. I love when Ursula literally works for Kathleen Kennedy, and Kennedy is also controlling the Dave Filoni stuff. I love this. You couldn't make this up. This woman is literally out there saying, I identify with the villain. She added, as a filmmaker of this type again, you're going to see some camp, inevitably. But I would say that tonally, our references are darker. During an appearance at Star Wars Celebration back in April, she made it clear that the series would be told from the perspective of the villains because that's all she knows. I put the last part in there. She said, I think one of the things that would be helpful to put in perspective is that we're at the end of the High Republic era and moving more into George's era of the Phantom Menace, which demonstrates, folks, that she has no idea what she's talking about because the time difference here is insane. Also, don't you love how they just can't stop messing with George Lucas's stuff? This was supposed to be set in a completely different era, so they couldn't keep screwing things up. And she's like, oh no, we're trying to get closer to it. You gotta love it. You just gotta love it. Anyway, if you think that things are going to get better at this point, given that Kathleen Kennedy has her hands on both Dave Filoni and the Acolyte, if you think that we're going to get what we want, what the market wants, what would make this studio money, you can think again. We're going to go see what happens with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We're going to find out if Kathleen Kennedy can possibly hold on to her seat and take another massive walloping. But I'm not holding my breath for Kathleen Kennedy being gone. I suggest that you not as well. And if you're holding out hope that Star Wars will, in fact, get better, I don't see any evidence at this point that that will happen. I would love to tell you otherwise. I would love to tell you that you're going to get the characters that make Star Wars Star Wars. I would love to tell you that Han Solo, Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker. I would love to tell you that Lando, that 3PO, that R2, that all of those wonderful characters are coming back and they're going to be better than ever. I would love to tell you there's an animated show coming out about the original trilogy. I can't tell you any of that. Instead, you get content created by Ursula the Sea Witch. That's who she identifies with. Directed by Kathleen Kennedy on how to do all this. You get Dave Filoni calling Rian Johnson on the regular because we all know The Last Jedi was so successful. This is Star Wars, and they are not going to change until they are forced to do so. And they're not going to be forced to do so until Disney's leadership is absolutely shifted. We may be arriving at that point in the future, but that point is definitely not now. I wish I had better to tell you. At this point, I do not. Well, folks, that's what we've got for this Friday. TGIF, right? Sorry. I am so sorry. And for you Star Wars fans out there, this just sucks. I sure do feel for everybody who loves Star Wars. I feel for Lauren Connor and all of you out there who love this content and want it to be good. But this is like if you took the Batman franchise and just said, you know what? You're getting Batgirl. You're getting nothing but Batgirl. It's all Batgirl all the time. We won't produce anything else in Gotham City that features Batman at all, unless we're going to emasculate him severely. That's Star Wars. Well, folks, if you like content like this, I don't mean the content of Star Wars. I mean the content of us trying to bring to light what's going on. Consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. I covet your comments. I covet your critiques, in fact. Do you think I'm wrong? Have I missed the mark? Am I being too hard on Star Wars? Do you have an angle that you think there's a glimmer of hope out there? Maybe Dave Filoni can actually pull through and give us some good content in Ahsoka and beyond. Well, let me know in the comments below. It's your opportunity to join in the conversation. I don't wish for this to be one person talking out there. I want to have all of you involved as well. I read them, I respond when possible. And if you have not yet become a member, consider doing so. For the price of a soda, you get exclusive content that I would love to give you. Try it out, see what you think. At the worst, you are out a couple dollars. Folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, in spite of Star Wars and all of its muckiness, keep growing, keep learning, and find the things that help you keep having fun.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.